views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and journalists and editors, photographers, videographers, anybody who's putting something out in the Bronx. And this evening we've got two segments, coincidentally, maybe not so coincidentally, that are all about the mayor's race. And you're going to really enjoy both of them, actually, and maybe open up your eyes a little bit about who maybe you would think about voting for or maybe not want to vote for. So let's get started and bring in the deputy editor of the city. It is Alyssa Katz. Nice to have you with us, Ms. Katz.
Thank you for having me. It's really fun, and I love talking about Meet Your Mayor.
There you go. Meet Your Mayor. She's already laid it out for us. Meet Your Mayor. It's a Meet Your Mayor tool, which I told you before the show, I think is incredibly smart and innovative. I'll give the background away and then you'll give us a little bit of the detail that basically you can go in there, just say what you think about policing in New York City or homelessness in New York City or many of the other issues that we're concerned with as we get into who might be the new mayor, and you input that information and it helps you define who you might want to vote for. Who came up with this idea? How did this happen? It's a great tool. I've given you the intro. Go to it. What do you think?
Thanks. So so Meet Your Mayor has its origins with a project that I worked on in 2013 at Columbia Journalism School, where I ran a newsroom there called the New York World. And in 2013, this is when Mayor de Blasio got elected, we thought, well, what can we do to really help orient voters to the candidates, the issues, and where they stand relative to one another? So we created, it was a very open ripoff of New York Magazine's approval matrix, which is this grid where you can see.
We won't tell. I mean, you were very honest about that, but.
Oh, we even designed it the same way, right? Okay. It was an open homage, right? Okay. That they, we said which candidates were, took which positions, and then who was really clear about what they wanted to do and who was really vague. So I knew going to the city, which is the city.nyc, we launched in 2019, and this is the city's first mayoral race. And I thought, well, maybe there's something similar that the city can do this time around that will really serve voters, where you have a very, these are, the mayor's race is completely open. De Blasio is now term limited, and at this point we have, I think it's 13 candidates, actually it's 15 candidates in Democrats and Republicans who are running. And how can we really help voters sort out the field and understand the differences between candidates? And really the need for doing something for the 2021 elections became clear as we started seeing candidates speaking in these Zoom forums, right? And you'll hear them
Don't talk them down. I've hosted many, and there are more to come.
Some of the forums are great, but what you see in a lot of these forums is that each candidate will have their own very, very special bespoke kind of platform. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. And it's very, very hard to compare them to one another or sort it out, like in one place, for people who are very busy and don't have time to listen to or watch hours of Zoom forums. And so we thought, well, what can we do to do two things? One, make the process really efficient of sorting through all these candidates. But two, some candidates are quite specific about what they will do or what they say they will do. And other candidates are maddeningly vague. And this also makes it hard to decide, right? Is that even if you can hear their positions, sometimes their positions are not very specific, not necessarily differentiated, or they'll say, well.
And I will tell you, having asked some of the mayor candidates and many other candidates questions, they also will give you a generic answer that may sound like the previous person's answer.
Yes.
And now you've got 8, 10, 12 candidates. How do you sort, for example, between Diane Morales and Maya Wiley? You say you want a female, a woman to be the mayor. They're both obviously, quote unquote, liberal or progressive. Well, I'm not sure which one really
Right.
speaks to me, right? I mean, I got it. And then you go on the other side and you talk about policing, whether it be Andrew Yang or Eric Adams or, whomever. And so what you've done here is make it
Yeah.
clearer anyway.
Yeah, and demanding accountability of the candidates is clear. And what I like about this too is that it really, I think we realized after it was live, and we'll talk about the work that it took to actually make this thing, but really realizing it serves kind of two of the key missions of the city, the organization that I work for. And one is just sort of the very kind of grassroots civic education, like making sure people are fully informed voters and are engaged, and that we're really addressing the questions that they have about the election, but then also that there really is an accountability function, because we're very direct with the candidates. We gave them multiple choice surveys and we said, okay, you have to pick one of these items. And we structure the questions and answers so that the responses really represented a fair range of what possible positions might be. We weren't going to shoehorn anyone in or force them to answer questions that weren't appropriate, but like really, they are tough decisions facing New York City's next mayor. Where do you stand on them?
And
Just
so
tell
in
us.
that way, you did a good job because you made them commit to some, stance of some sort. I want to just talk about how it works, because it works very easy. So you basically fill it out, you put in what you think, and then ultimately it
Yeah.
will give you an answer and give you, let's say, three of the candidates who agree with you on that. And I talked about policing. Let's say you believe in defunding the police. Well, they answer that question, and then you find which candidates agree with that. Let's say you don't, it'll give you that as well. And then in the end, you'll find out on all the issues who is the suggested best for you. You can still vote for who you want to.
Yeah, and exactly what the way this works is that, we are literally giving the same questions to the candidates that you as the user are getting as well, that any voter is
Right.
getting. And so I think that's really where the magic happens, because it's, so very often the candidates are kind of talking up here and there's different conversations going on, and we're kind of bringing everyone together. And then, yeah, you really do get to see who matches with you, who doesn't. And there are times where the candidates will try to dodge a question, not answer a question. In that case, we often will go to the public record, to forums, to
And just
news
come up
coverage,
with
and say, you know what, you've taken this position. We reserve the right to just say you've taken this position. So there's most of the questions are responded to with surveys, but some of them, the candidates have just answered in other forums. And we just make sure that what they've said. We have quotes in there. So you see exactly, it's not just the multiple choice test. Then it's like, okay, let's hear a little more from you. So yeah, the idea is to get a really efficient view of where the candidates stand on all these topics.
Of where the candidates stand, and then where they stand in relation to each individual voter, which is remarkable. One of the things that occurred to me, and of course I'm always thinking about the media side of it, it gives you information as well. In other words, you presumably can know what the general public thinks about things. I'm assuming you'll collect some of that data, and then at the end find out, well, look at this. Look who is a favorite in the Bronx.
I wish we could do that. So
you don't do that.
Thing. We don't, and we thought about it, and
you're going to do that next time then.
Well, no, we might not. So here's what happened. We thought about it, and we have a technology to do it, because you can collect all kinds of information. But I think we had an internal discussion and realized that the privacy concerns and think about it, we're asking voters to tell us where they stand,
what they think.
We don't want the responsibility or any of the questions that might come up if we're gathering information, especially after there's some things that happened in the last few years involving Facebook, involving
and data, and then collecting, and then the data is there for you to find the IP address of whoever entered it, and you don't want to go there. And
there's
I will tell you,
and
tell our viewers, just as an aside, in our second segment, we're going to do somebody who actually did a real survey of the Bronx and the mayoral race.
No, I was disappointed because I really did want the survey information, but the moment we really went through that privacy exercise, I just realized we can't do that.
That makes not unless you put in there that you'll be traced or whatever.
Yeah, even that.
So how have you felt that it's gone? I mean, do you at least know how many respondents? Let's say, I mean, are the numbers?
I don't have the traffic numbers at my
know.
fingertips, and I should say we expect this to build up a lot. Right, we've just gotten started. We're going to be we're midway through our 15 topics. I think we just finished number 7. We're going to do number 8, I think tonight when I'm done with this, we'll get number 8 up. But then we only have a few weeks left. What we're going to do is get the last round, once we get the last round of survey questions back, and then create a big compendium of all 61 questions that you can do and get your final match, right? So we expect that there'll be a real acceleration of use as the primary gets closer and people really turn their attention to the race. So I don't have numbers. I mean, there's definitely been tens of thousands of people who've used this. We would like to get it to the hundreds of thousands. And
listen, wait till June 1st hits, and not only the candidates are going to be, everything's going to be ramped up. You can see it all over the television till you're sick of it. And also people, when I ask people, even just casually, so who do you like? Nobody really knows. I mean, there's so much indecision because there's so many candidates. I like him or I like her. It's very confusing.
No, but we're getting a lot of very good feedback from people who were telling us in different forums. Sometimes they write us, sometimes they put it on social media, they'll post about it in Reddit, and they'll say, wow, I didn't know who to vote for. This is really helping me on making my decisions with the help of this tool. And that's really gratifying because that's exactly what we wanted. And I have to say, I don't know, how much you know about my background, but I used to be on the editorial board of the Daily News where, we would make endorsements, which of course, I'm now at a nonprofit. It's a newsroom. We cannot legally make endorsements and we're not making endorsements, but the idea of being able to help people find their match in a purely news and factually driven way without us saying, you should vote for that person. Like, I don't know who you should vote for. You know who you should vote for. You know your match. Right. So I think there's a real gratification in be able to kind of broker that interaction.
In some cases, it may surprise people because maybe they've gleaned some things from what they've read in the newspaper, or they've gleaned some things from an ad that they've read or something like that.
Yeah.
And they say, well, then I'm going to vote for X, Y, or Z. And then all of a sudden they say, wait a minute, but that candidate doesn't agree with what I agree with. Maybe I ought to take another look. I think I have to say, as I told you at the top, I think it's fantastic. So it's the Meet Your Mayor tool. We find it at thecity.org, right?
No, thecity.nyc.
Thecity.nyc.
Yeah.
And we assume the Meet Your Mayor tool is right there at the top.
Yeah, it's on the homepage. You can find it to look for Meet Your Mayor or Google Meet Your Mayor of thecity.nyc. And it's really, and we're releasing, like I said, new chapters, new episodes every week. I think the next one is going to be on taxes. And, we've done them on the NYPD and criminal justice. We've done them on education, on COVID recovery. And like I said, we have 7 more coming up. So it's really fun because you really will learn things about yourself and the candidates you didn't even realize. So
I really think it's great. And they say timing is everything. You really pick the right year as opposed to having 1 or 2 candidates. Now, really, it's like a jigsaw puzzle trying to sort through it. Alyssa Katz, Deputy Editor of The City, thank you so much. Thank you for the great innovation. And we hope you'll come back and talk about more innovations and more interesting things that you guys are putting out at the great publication. You should check it out, subscribe, the whole bit, thecity.nyc.
Thank you so much, Gary. This has been a pleasure.
Great. Okay, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to, as I mentioned a moment ago, we're going to talk to a young man who runs a little marketing company, and they did a survey on the mayor's race for the borough of the Bronx, for us in particular. So we'll be right back. More Bronx Buzz in a moment.